What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk here, back again for another discussion video. This time it's not a reaction video. If you're new to this channel, check out all my reactions. But I wanted to talk about BTS not getting a Grammy nomination. Now, here's the thing. I'm not sure which specific categories that they sent in to be nominated for, because that's how it works. You usually send your album and your team, so in this case Big Hit or whoever, would send into the Grammys and submit which categories that BTS wanted to be nominated for, but they weren't nominated for any, and it stirred a lot of controversy online. I've waited a couple days, or at least a day now, to discuss this because I kind of wanted to collect my thoughts. I have some stuff that I've written down on the computer and some stats that have been provided from other websites like Rolling Stone. And it's already knowledge that we all know, but I have at least some detail behind it, because I've watched the Grammys for years. If you type in my name on Twitter and type Andy Piluk Grammys, I've been watching them for years. And if you see that guy in a poster over there, Kendrick Lamar, he's been screwed over by the Grammys multiple times. You got my BTS poster. Now they're in the same boat. But it's not just people that I'm biased towards. It's not just people, like, because I'm a fan of Kendrick, like I'm part of ARMY when it comes to BTS, or, because I'm a Blink with Blackpink. It's like, there's been awards that have been given out to artists that are very hardworking and have good music, but maybe they didn't deserve it more than somebody else. Because the Grammys has been doing this for years. You think that something is going to be done correctly because it's not just fan voted. And here's the thing: I'm okay with fan voted stuff, but when it comes to the Grammys, they have a committee, and it's usually where the best music of the year gets put together and gets nominated. And we've seen over the years, especially if you've watched the Grammys, they've messed up on a lot of different things. Now, this year, of course, everybody's really upset about the BTS thing. There's been times in the past where album of the year has been given out to an undeserving album, or artist, or like the song of the year, record of the year, whatever. But this year is very important because BTS had an incredible year. They were beating album sales. Like, here's a statistic right here. Map of the Soul Persona, which would have been the album that probably would have got the nominations. They outsold Beyonce's surprise live album Homecoming by a sizable margin. They were outselling Beyonce, who would probably most would say is one of the greatest entertainers in music of all time. Then you have, they had their third chart-topping album in less than 11 months. That is, the last group to earn that was the Beatles, of course, arguably the biggest group of all time. So they were breaking records this year. They were outselling legends, and they were shoved to the side basically by the Grammys, and they were told that they were not going to get nominated for certain awards, which clearly doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of sales and the way that they produced their music this year. They were up at the top of the charts. It made a lot of sense. They were trending on social media, which would gain more attention for the Grammys to recognize music. It doesn't make a ton of sense. Now, this is what I need people to understand as well about the Grammys and music. What happens with a lot of these shows, and people will say it doesn't happen, but it does, politics is largely involved in a lot of these things. The Grammys or whatever other award show will promise artists an award if they show up or if they do a performance. There's also politics when it comes to, let's say, Kendrick Lamar wins Rap Album of the Year. They'll turn and say, okay, well, now he can't win the Album of the Year category because now he's sweeping all these big categories. But it's been done before. But of course, it's done by a small demographic, and that is North American, usually white pop artists, which is clearly controversial, but it happens too often where you'll see somebody sweep all these categories, and sure, they've made great music, they deserve to be there, but it's not always deserved that they sweep all the major categories. And frankly, I don't think it's fair. Now, we've seen people like Adele sweep the categories like that, and she's fantastic. She totally deserves it if you've listened to her music before. She's clearly one of the artists of the decade. She's done incredible. But when it comes to somebody like, let's look at Kendrick Lamar when he put out To Pimp a Butterfly. That album had the most Grammy nominations since Michael Jackson's Thriller, and he lost Album of the Year to Taylor Swift. Now again, Taylor Swift, incredible album. I believe that was her 1989 album. It sold like crazy. Her tour was awesome. But this is the biggest problem, and this is where BTS comes in. It's like, the Grammys is very confused on how they grade their music, or how their committee actually picks who wins. Now, of course, I have no secret intel of how they vote or what it takes or who's on the committee, but there's a bunch of people that are able to vote, and sometimes they don't know the music from another category. So if you have a country specialist, why are they voting a rap album or a pop album? It doesn't make a ton of sense. So when BTS is sending in these submissions, people are probably like, well, I've never listened to this before. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I can't understand the language. And they push it off to the side, ignoring how good the lyrics are if you actually read it, the production, which you can hear, doesn't matter what language it is, and, you know, the skill that they have. And also the sales. Like, the Grammys have a problem with dictating what they like in music. They don't know if they're basing their judgment off of skill, or if it's off of sales, or if it's off of favoritism. They need to find a committee, and they need to narrow it down or get in fresh minds that look at everything and look at some of the best music. I seen Rosalina got some, Rosalia, I believe that's her name. She did Malamente. That's a great song. I believe that she's getting some Grammy nominations this year. That's great. You know, we've seen Bad Bunny get in there. International music, that's fantastic. How is BTS not even in the World Album? I believe that they were eligible for that. Like, if you look at the nominations, what's the album called? World Music, Best World Music Album. How are they not nominated for that? Literally, they should win that with ease. And again, I'm not taking out any of the other people that are in that category. They're probably just as deserving. But when you put BTS in the same ballpark at breaking records with people like Beyonce and the Beatles, it doesn't make a ton of sense. So if we're going to keep going here as well, a lot of people were focused on the big one, the album of the year. Now, to be fair, there were a lot of really good albums that came out this year, and you could have said, okay, BTS, maybe we're not in for album of the year, but we're going to get there one year. And I think that that's very fair to say. This album should at least been in like the group categories, the pop album of the year categories, not the full big, you know, album of the year category. Hell, there's a couple songs in here that could have been put in the rap categories as even like an honorable mention, and they weren't even talked about. It doesn't make sense. So let's look at this. This kind of ticked me off. So voters may have thought that Map of the Soul Persona was too short of an album at 7 tracks. They still nominated Lil Nas X's 18-minute debut EP 7 for Album of the Year. So that, again, that doesn't make sense. How is Lil Nas X getting all these nominations? Again, Lil Nas X broke down barriers this year, and I'm very, very excited for him. Clearly, RM's a fan of him, making records with him. And this video is not to knock any artist. I'm super happy for a lot of people. But if you're going to turn around and say maybe that Map of the Soul Persona was, you know, not big enough or not long enough or anything like that, you have to turn around and look at some of the other albums that were nominated. And clearly, they had an album that was long enough. By the way, you can't dictate that on you know, what gets nominated, because there are guidelines. Map of the Soul Persona was in the guidelines to be submitted. I believe it only has to be a 15-minute album with 5 tracks to even be able to be nominated. So they're fine there. I don't see how this would even be a problem. If you look at the duo categories and stuff like that, again, there's a lot of really, really big names in there, like Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello have a song in there. The Jonas Brothers. There's a lot of really, really big songs that came out. But the Halsey and BTS collab, like, seriously broke the internet when it came out, and it's an incredible track. It's not, I'm not being biased here. Like, it's a really good song. And I think more people need to break their own barriers and realize, okay, we need to pay more attention to this. They're breaking records, the songs are good, the production's good. To me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, I had more stuff that I wanted to talk about here, but I kind of mumbled and jumbled it together. But I mean, like, they've been nominated for awards when it comes to like the AMAs and the VMAs and stuff like that, but they're like, look at the MTV Video Music Awards introduced a new K-pop category. Why do we have to separate them from the rest of the acts? Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. If they're selling more, if they're putting out good music, it would be different. If the music wasn't good, then there's no argument. But the music is good enough, and it's done well when it comes to the sales and stuff like that. They should not be separated in certain categories. But again, there's obviously going to be some people that disagree with me here, but I have to narrow this down for you guys. BTS 100% at least deserved 1 or 2 nominations. The World Album nomination would have made a ton of sense. The duo categories with Halsey would have made a ton of sense. And you probably could have even put them in for Pop Album of the Year. You could have put them in there. And again, I thought RM, when he opened up the album with Persona, that could have at least been, like I said, they could have said, and RM's Persona just didn't make it into the rap category. But okay, there we go. That's fine. Again, we don't know which ones they specifically submitted into. And again, you guys can let me know. But I really just don't believe it's fair, as somebody who listens to music from all over the world and somebody who watches the Grammys every single year. I hate constantly seeing the Grammys miss out on opportunities to award artists that are deserving, you know, more than other artists. And again, this isn't to knock anybody, and that's why I didn't bring up any specific names. The only one I did was like Lil Nas X, but like I said, he definitely deserves, like Old Town Road was a smash hit. He deserves nominations. But there's a ton of artists that have been nominated this year that, while deserving, might be in the same ballpark as BTS when it comes to just as deserving. This isn't any sort of bias. This is just thoughts coming from the heart and coming from the facts. That's all. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, I love all K-pop groups. I listen to all music. So if you want to subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Join the Andy gang. We're on our way to 50,000 subscribers. I appreciate all of you. Love and appreciate you guys as always. See you in the next video. Peace.